Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Dr. Glenn is a clinical psychologist and former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leaving the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Before we get started, if you haven't downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
It's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. I'm here with one of my favorite people, Amy, who has agreed to let us record this time so that you can benefit from her experience and strength and wisdom and hope, as well as her trials and tribulations and stumbles and falls. Right, Amy?
That's right.
What's on your mind today? You want to share any of your recent successes or struggles or observations or progress?
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about my journey because I feel like I suddenly turned a corner and was sort of looking back on how did I get here?
Oh, I love that.
Okay, well, you know some of my story, but I'll give a little bit of the background. I was an underweight kid, and my parents were always trying to get me to eat. So they would save, the rich chocolate food, all the kind of things for me, special vitamins. And that changed all of a sudden when I hit puberty at 11. And then I was eating all the time. But that wasn't even the problem. My younger sister had always been fat, and she was always trying to diet, or at least my parents were trying to make her diet. So there was a whole big focus on this. And I didn't understand what the big deal was. So I said, let me show you how it's done. I didn't need to lose weight. I really didn't. But so I went on a diet with her. My whole family went on this diet. And that started decades of yo-yo dieting. I did the Stillman diet. I still remember Tuesday was lamb chops. Then I did the Scarsdale diet, and I still remember the walnuts on the cottage cheese and the fruit salad. So all I learned was different food preparations, but in between, I was still overeating.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was overeating. I didn't know I was binging. Well, for example, we'd go to a restaurant. My father would order the child's portion and give me his. So he'd eat the child's meal and I'd eat the adult meal.
I see.
My brother-in-law once said, you eat like a bird, 10 times your own weight. I wasn't very heavy, maybe slightly overweight. But then I really started putting on weight in college. And that's when I learned how to do the Last Supper thing, where you eat every single thing you can before the next day, because now we're going to start our grapefruit diet or our yogurt diet or whatever it was. So that's when I really started putting on weight. So first you'd have the pizza and then the sundae, and then because you're never going to have those again, right?
Yeah.
After I was married, my top weight, I think I was actually in the obese range, which was the first time ever. So that was like 30 or 40 pounds ago. I took off some of that, but then I was still going up and down the same 20 pounds when I found your program.
What happened?
I did 2 intensives with your old program. And the first year, I think I still thought of it as a diet. So I made rules, like they would be diet rules, like, well, what are the foods that I eat that have the most calories that I should cut out so I could lose weight? I didn't know it was binging. I was still eating after dinner, maybe a pound of pistachios or M&M peanuts or any of these things that you can fill a bowl with and eat mindlessly while reading. That was I heard someone call it recreational eating. So I would diet during the day. I would have coffee for breakfast, nothing or a small thing for lunch, a normal, quote, dinner, and then binge after dinner. And my idea of a diet was restricting what I ate during the day. So naturally, I was always hungry at night.
How long did that go on for?
I started trying to restrict food. So I said, well, I'll never eat chocolate again. That was my very first rule. And then I started going after different sweets. So I discovered all the caramel desserts and the fruit desserts. So then I tried, okay, no sugar. That lasted maybe a month. And then I had a list, which I still have this list. I actually pulled it out for a refutation the other day. I made a list of my 16 favorite desserts. And I said, if it's not on this list, I can't have it. But I was still in this diet mode because I said I will never again eat anything other than one of the desserts on my list of 16 fabulous desserts, but not until I get to my goal weight. So I still had this idea of you eat one way when you lose the weight, and then you eat another way when you get there.
Which smacks a little bit of the diet mentality, right?
Yes, it's definitely diet mentality. So I was still in there. That was like, I think a year and a half. I read this other book and I had experimented with this other program, which tries to teach you that people focus on weight, but the weight isn't the problem. The problem is you're overeating. And that was the same time that in one of your old programs, you had us make a list of all of our overeating behaviors. So I said, oh, well, maybe that's what I should, instead of dieting, just stop overeating, which sounds kind of obvious, right? But that was a revelation to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a list of the overeating behaviors. Eating after dinner was the big one, eating too much at meals, eating too many desserts. And then I didn't want to feel deprived. So I said, well, I can eat whatever I want during the day. I just can't eat after dinner. And then the pig, lizard brain, whatever we call it now. My nephew, by the way, calls it Bob. I'm thinking of trying that out, Bob. So Bob told me, hey, you really should eat a lot during the day, and then you definitely won't be hungry at night. It'll be so much easier to keep to your rule of not eating after dinner. So I did that for a while, and then I thought, well, this isn't going to help. I've got to somehow get control of my eating during the day too. So I started keeping a journal of what I was eating during the day to see where could I cut back. And I discovered there were a lot of things I ate that weren't really that good. Well, gee, instead of restricting all my favorite high calorie, high fat, high sugar foods, what if I stop eating these things that aren't that good in the first place?
And did that work?
Well, so the most recent one I discovered was French fries. And I didn't eat them that often, but I got into this thing of ordering them whenever I was out and eating at least half of the portion, which is a lot. And then I thought, they're really not that good. I was thinking I should give up fried food. That was one of my things when I was dieting, no fried food. But I said, well, I really love fried clams and shrimp tacos. How could I give those up? Vegetable tempura, that's really delicious. But French fries, who needs French fries? Maybe I'll never eat French fries again. So I put that on my list. I now have a list of like 4 items. Oh, cashews, that was another one. I noticed I would pick them out of a mixed nuts dish. I would eat all the cashews. And even as I was eating them, I would be thinking to myself, I don't know why I keep eating these because they're really not that good. I mean, they're fine. It's not like they taste bad or anything, but they're not really delicious. They're not like pistachio nuts or walnuts or, a really good nut. They have the highest carbohydrate of any nut. So it's this combination of
Carbs and fat,
carbs and fat, right?
like bread and butter.
And it's not that good. So I put that on the list. So now I had French fries, cashews, and then I started going out with these people to this place that had really good lemonade, and they serve like 32-ounce things of lemonade. And I remember reading about liquid sugar, how it's really bad for you because you can't tell what you're eating and it spikes your blood sugar. Plus, your brain doesn't register it as calories because you're drinking it instead of eating it. So then I added that to the list. Okay, I will never have a drink with more than a teaspoon of sugar in it. And M&M peanuts, I had to put that in.
The way that you got there was not so much by deprivation, but for looking for the things that you were eating that really weren't that good in the first place, that you weren't really enjoying.
Right. Well, maybe I'd enjoy the first few bites, but then, for example, M&M peanuts, when I keep eating them, they didn't taste that good and I wouldn't feel that great afterwards. So I thought, why not eat something better? Like a really delicious piece of cake with chocolate ganache or whatever. I mean, that's an excellent dessert. And it's not something that makes you want to keep eating. So that was a definition of something that wasn't that good. First, it's not that good. But second, even though it's not that good, you keep eating it compulsively. So that's how I got to that. And then also realizing about the after dinner. So I did whatever I could to, make that like my number one rule.
And what happened?
Well, amazingly, I very slowly started to lose weight. which I hadn't done for like 9 months. I was stuck at this, new plateau, which wasn't bad. I wasn't way fat, just maybe 10 or 20 pounds overweight.
Hmm.
Now I'm down to the weight that I drastically dieted myself down to 10 years ago for a contest that I stayed at for one day before I gained it all back. And now I've been at this weight for, a few months. I still have a little more I'd like to lose, but like it's no big deal.
I mean, that's wonderful. Doesn't feel like you're desperate or clinging on for dear life.
Oh, and here's the story I wanted to tell you about that, about go at your own pace. Years ago, I signed up for this hiking trip. I'd never been on a hiking trip. It was in Utah, and they told you had to have hiking boots and all this stuff. And then they showed you how, this will sound really silly, they showed you how to walk. Put your foot down like you really mean it, no tentative steps. So you really plant your foot. And the other thing they said was, go at your own pace. And like for the first day, I didn't get that. So I would go along with the rest of the group and they go really fast, they hike up this hill or mountain or whatever. And then they stop and take a break. And I'd take the break with them. And then they'd go again and they'd go really fast and I'd go along with them and then stop and take a break. The second day, I said, well, wait a minute, let me try this go at your own pace. So they rushed off and I went at like this glacial pace, like really slow, one foot in front of the other, plodding up. And they're all way ahead of me, obviously, right? Until I got to the first rest stop. And there they all were resting. But I just kept going. And then I got to the second rest stop, they weren't there yet. I got to the third rest stop, they weren't there yet. I got to the top, and I waited a half an hour till they all caught up.
Wow. Tortoise in the hare.
So yeah, it was kind of like that. I was thinking of that because I used to listen to your podcast and there'd be the people say, oh, I've been in your program for a month and I've totally quit binging and I've lost 20 pounds and oh my God. And I was so like envious. And then you do your podcast with them. And then 3 months later, they'd be on a call and they were like, oh yeah, I binged again. And yeah, no, I stopped following my rules. Well, we all make mistakes. And I certainly make mistakes. I've had a recent debacle with a peanut butter cookie that some people have heard about. But anyway,
Fought a war with a peanut butter cookie and you lost.
really. But
Yeah,
I'm on top of it now. I'm on to that pig.
good.
I put the peanut butter cookies on double secret probation. So they're not on the never list yet, but if they rear their head, they're getting there.
What's double secret probation?
Oh, it's did you ever see the movie Animal House?
Yeah, a long time ago.
They put the house on probation, but for some reason they didn't want to say it really was probation, so he said it was double secret probation. It's just a very funny line.
I love it. That's funny. You ran your own race. You went at your own pace, and it might have taken you longer than you thought you saw other people going. But in the end, you feel like you passed them and you're kind of waiting for them to catch up.
Yeah, I feel like other people were ahead of me, but a lot of people experience shame and guilt when they make a mistake, and then it takes them a while to get back on track. And the pig tells them all these terrible things. Maybe I just have a different attitude about it, but I think, oh, okay, I really messed up with those peanut butter cookies. How do I fix that?
Hmm. You really get the hang of forgiving yourself with dignity. I always say if you aim at the target, aim at the bullseye, and you assess the results and you turn guilt into responsibility, figure out what you can learn from every mistake, and then get up and aim again, you can't help but get better.
Well, I never had the guilt and shame part. You see, I thought that's why I wasn't succeeding because I didn't take it seriously enough. Because you'd say, well, you have to have some guilt to know you did something wrong. And I'd say, well, okay, I broke my rule, but all right, maybe I didn't take it seriously. Let's see what I can do this time.
I don't want people to feel any more guilt or shame than they need to. I just want them to notice when they've missed the bullseye and take it
Right.
seriously. Yeah. I hope people don't think I was trying to shame you. I really never intended to do that. I'm sorry if I did. Well, Amy, that's the solution. That's really the solution is to keep going and keep learning and go at your own pace and never give up, never, ever, 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 ever give up. Just like Winston Churchill said, right? Never surrender. Never in particular surrender to the notion of powerlessness or hopelessness or disease. The devil made you do it.
I always have a new food goal. So my latest one is outside of conquering the peanut butter cookies. I want to learn to enjoy vegetables more.
Oh, how are you doing that?
I made a list of the vegetable dishes that I do like, and I'm forcing myself to have at least one a week.
Which have you discovered that you like a lot?
Well, I really like sauteed zucchini. I like julienned carrots with lime juice,
Oh, that's interesting.
kale salad with garlic and lemon juice, and spinach, mushrooms, and black beans.
We're going to have a sub show called Cooking with Amy.
Okay.
This evening, I had a big bowl of cauliflower rice that I get from Whole Foods. It's really easy. It's not that expensive if you buy them in the big bags. I made it with mushrooms and onions, and actually I had a little bit of tempeh in it. And I added there's this sauce called Menage peppers, which is basically hot pepper sauce with no salt. And it's really, really good. Fills me up. It's really not a lot of calories. It's really, really, really good. So I do think that over time, learning to enjoy vegetables is a big part of recovery. You get the fiber and the minerals that you need. I sometimes wonder if part of binge eating is people are mineral deficient.
That could
They're not,
be.
they're not really
Yeah.
eating enough minerals.
This is a new thing, and I don't know if there's any science behind this, but there's all this stuff about don't eat processed foods. And I think, well, why is everyone so hot about olive oil? I mean, that's pretty processed.
It's very processed.
May have to close your vegan ears for this, but I've been relying more on animal fats instead of olive oil.
I see. Okay, God forbid. That's great. That's great. I heard a lecture about, I think it was Dr. Furman, a kind of a fan of his, and he was saying that the reason olive oil is so popular is not because there's an olive oil tree in nature. It is a processed food. It's stripped of the fiber and I think the lignans or some of the other benefits of the olive. But olive oil got so popular because it was part of the Mediterranean diet, which overall performed so much better than most other diets, really because of the prevalence of vegetables and fruit. That's really why the Mediterranean diet is performing so much better. So he says that the diet does well in spite of the olive oil, not because of the olive oil.
Mm.
And he really recommends against oil. So yeah, I try to get my fats from avocados or sometimes from seeds, occasionally nuts. I find that I can't really eat nuts by themselves. I have to have them as parts of sauces and dressing. If I were just to sit down with a bag of cashews, I would wind up going to town.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
nuts are difficult.
something about it that just makes you want to hurt yourself with food. There are actually toxins in them. So if you have too many, you wake up and you're really kind of poisoning yourself. It's dangerous.
You've said before, in nature, you would never find such a big mess of nuts all at once.
Yeah, because they fall from the tree in like September, October, and you'd have to work to separate from the shell. I think you couldn't even get cashews in nature. I think there's a mechanical process that makes them edible, but they're not really edible in nature. I forget what the story is about that, but if you look it up,
Right, there's some story about that, and like they're not even nuts, or maybe that's peanuts that aren't really nuts.
peanuts are a legume. But I think cashews have to be mechanically separated and heated for some reason, or else you can't really eat them raw. I forget. I studied about it once. I just convinced myself that and to be really, really careful with cashews. So,
Well, olives you have to treat with lye.
my goodness. Yeah, the things we put into our bodies in the name of food, right? Or the name of food pleasure.
Well, no more. I'm the pure girl.
Okay. That was a really good insight, Amy. I understand why you turned the corner with that. That's a really good insight.
Which insight?
Running your own race, walking past the other hikers.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize that I had because I was still making mistakes, and I thought, wow. On my latest set of rules, I followed all of them perfectly. One of them, I messed up with the peanut butter cookies. I had 16 days in. I thought, okay, well, it's that damn peanut butter cookie, but I'm fine.
Good. Was there anything else that you wanted to share?
I think the attitude around mistakes is really critical. And I know you've said this before, but everyone is a learning opportunity and everyone is a stepping stone to a better food life.
Absolutely. I like the Winston Churchill quote, success is not final and failure is not fatal. What counts is the courage to continue. I've taken to, in the last year or so, adding quotes that I really like to my ritual. So I'm reading it 3 times a day. And I found it has a really strong impact on me. I can't put more than 3 or 4 in there, but like just kind of contemplating very powerful quotes that make a difference in your life. When you read them every day, it really starts to make a big difference. So success is not final, failure is not fatal. What counts is the courage to continue. I try to bring that forth with everybody that we work with. That's what defeated the Nazis. That's how they got through.
Oh, the
So,
other thing I think was really helpful was my identity task. I came up with the phrase of what I wanted to be or what I wanted to aspire to. And even just recently, I took it out and said, well, what does that exactly mean? I turned it into a manifesto of how would a mindful gourmet eat?
Is that what the identity that you want as a mindful
Yeah.
gourmet?
Yep.
Oh, I love that. What a creative, unique, and powerful vision for the person you want to be in the world. A mindful gourmet. I'm telling you, we're going to have a cooking show with Amy soon.
Yeah. And it's got to be, 3 ingredients or less ideally, because I don't like to fuss. They have to be delicious the way they are.
Sounds okay to me, Amy. Wonderful. Well, thank you for being willing to share this, and thank you for your perseverance. So you could be a shining example of the tortoise rather than the hare. In the weight loss space, people get all excited about these very quick success stories. But the truth is, this is a tortoise's race. This really is a race that goes to the tortoise, not the hare. Really appreciate you sticking around and persevering until you have these insights. Wonderful.
Well, it made a difference, and I'm really glad I did. And all of your insights and strategies are amazing.
Thanks, Amy.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. If you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.